Hey, my name is Jake Havron, business strategist for small business owners, Fortune 500 CEOs, and even national speakers. I'm honored today to be part of 180's Elevate series dedicated to fathers. We have had a challenging parenting year during this pandemic, and I know firsthand that a supportive community of dads goes a long way. 180 Elevate is a social networking platform to connect, grow, and give world-class experts and influencers to dig deeper into an area of life which has an element to uplift our perspectives on humanity. In honor of Father's Day, we present you conscious dad leaders. These are inspirational executives who have paved the way for conscious parenting while climbing the professional ladder all the way to the very top. Conscious parenting is a parent-centric parenting philosophy that is based on the idea of its focus on actually helping the parent's behavior instead of the child's behavior. So let's hear how Varun Badwar does it. He is an executive at Palo Alto Networks and former CEO and co-founder at Redlock and CipherCloud.
Everybody, welcome to this episode of Elements to Elevate by 180 Elevate. Each month, we will laser focus and dig deeper into an area of life which we truly believe is an element to uplift our perspectives and humanity. From insights to action, the path to elevate your mind, body, and soul starts here. In today's episode about conscious dad leaders, our guest is Varun Badwar, former CEO and co-founder of Redlock, that got acquired by Palo Alto Networks in 2017, where he is now an executive. Welcome, Varun, and thank you for being on our show.
Thanks for having me, Rupam. Really excited to have a chat with you.
Thank you. Now, you have an incredibly elevated background across different functions and titles. So take us on your journey from childhood to early career to this Silicon Valley dream that every startup has. Our audience would love to hear about your key learnings and takeaways in each phase of your journey.
Yeah, happy to share. It's been an interesting journey. It started out being part of a middle class family. Dad was in the Indian Army. Mom was, a part-time teacher, an educator. But most of my childhood, she was around as really being a full-time mom. And did my schooling in a small town in India called Dehradun. And at the end of kind of my 12th grade, my uncles all used to live in the U.S. And so the grand plan of life was always that I would go get my kind of college undergrad degree in the U.S. and kind of live on from there. So that was something I understood from like 7th or 8th grade. So it was always part of the grand plan. And so moved over to California. I was fortunate that my elder sister used to be here, so I got a chance to kind of get accustomed to this new culture, new lifestyle, living with her as I kind of transitioned into the kind of this new way of life in the U.S. Ended up doing my undergrad in computer science from USC down in LA, and I'd say that was an interesting one. Why computer science? Well, coming from India, it's usually as you know, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer. And so I took the engineering path because, bio and chemistry were not my strongest subjects. And, going through college, it was, again, I realized that, for me, programming, sitting in a lab for hours at a stretch was just not exciting. Like truly, and I'll tell you a story as we go through this conversation around just my parents, since I was 8 years old, used to call me a businessman. And it's true, when I was even in college, I really loved being on the business side of technology rather than be kind of in a cubicle or in a back room writing code. Now, the tough part doing kind of computer science was, well, what was going to be my career path? And, long story short again, I ended up taking a course in ethical hacking around cybersecurity. And I just got so excited because I realized that you could kind of break into people's applications and networks and not go to jail. And so anyways, from there on, I weaseled my way into my first job in cybersecurity. I call it weaseling my way in because back when I graduated from college, people never hired cybersecurity professionals from college. You usually had 5 to 10 years of IT experience before you came to cybersecurity. But I was lucky enough to have two offers for consulting and IT from Deloitte and KPMG, and I played them against each other and said, who's going to let me into the cybersecurity practice, and um, started my journey there. And I'd say, 2 years into doing this as a classic kind of, young, restless person, I was like, oh God, I got to be able to move faster in my career. And, at KPMG, my kind of managers told me, look, you're doing phenomenally well. In 10 years, you'll be partner. That's a fast track. I said, you're crazy to think I'm going to wait 10 years to be partner. And so then I started looking at potentially going to business school. I ended up getting waitlisted into Kellogg. And right when I was going through that kind of general journey, um, and I ended up basically having an opportunity to be part of the founding team of a startup in 2010, a company called Cypher Cloud. And just from there in, I've been in the entrepreneurial path and never looked back. So I was there at Cypher Cloud for about 5 years. Got a great learning experience there, working under the helm of a very experienced serial entrepreneur. And in 2015, I said, look, I'm ready. I'm going to go start my own company. That's what Runlock was. 3 years later, we got acquired by Palo Alto Networks. And that's where I am today, 2.5 years later.
We all live in a world with so many deadlines and demands that make us feel rushed, and we may feel that we can't spare the time to be fully present with our kids. We've all been there. So, can you share with our audience a few strategies about how we can create more space in our lives in order to give our kids more quality attention and focus on what truly matters?
Yeah, certainly. And it's interesting because this amazing transition happens in life. And the first 3 years, 3 months or so, it's like a train hits you because life completely changes upside down. The kids aren't interacting with you. They're basically sleeping, eating, pooping. You know this. You've raised great kids yourself. And all of a sudden, it's like you're not getting enough sleep. You're not getting enough time with your significant other. And certainly you're not getting enough time for work. I was very particular that I took at least 2 months of complete paternity leave when this happened because I realized this was going to be a very large transition and life-changing event, not just for me, but also for my wife and the family in general. So I think that time, first and foremost, gave us just the ability to pace ourselves through this new way of life. I'd say, look, the other big thing um, for me, the big change was really around kind of my personal schedule. I'm usually a night owl, so I would usually stay up late, wake up late, and that's just part of being a techie in the valley. But I'd say what I've realized over time is you have to kind of segment the time, the quality of time you're spending with your kids, but also more importantly, segment the time you're going to spend with your significant other, because a lot is changing in your relationship with them as well. And I'd say, long story short, kids are 11 months old today, and I now go to bed at 10 p.m., which was a joke back in the day. I would probably not sleep before midnight. I get a great 1 hour with them in the morning when they've just woken up. They're the happiest. At this time, I'm not carrying my phone with me. I'm not worried. My admin knows that no meetings are supposed to be scheduled at that time. This is early, by the way, right? This is like 6:30 to 7:30, 8 or so. Then I go off by Monday. I think COVID has been a blessing in the sense, even if I get 10 minutes between meetings, I get to go see them, enjoy some company with them. Uh, and then in the evening, again, I make sure that by 5 and 7, just like we do the morning routine with them, I kind of segment my time and I have quality time with them, taking them to the park, doing their bedtime routine. And I think that's just so fulfilling. As initially, it was very hard to kind of, especially with work from home and COVID, how do you actually segment your life in these pockets and these hours? But I'd say we managed. We managed 11 months later, and I'd say after the kids go to bed, there's again an hour devoted to my wife because I think it's so important for us to have a very healthy relationship, have a bond that we've continued to have as life is changing so rapidly. So I'd say those are probably the main changes. And then from a social life perspective, last but not least, we segment that also. It's one day a week is for friends, but other than that, we recognize we have to spend a lot more weekend time with our little ones, and they are growing up very fast.
Yeah, so self discipline and pacing yourself is what I'm hearing. And, COVID's been a blessing with a lot of people with young families, which has been awesome in a way. So,
Yeah.
growing up in a culture, everybody's trying to give you an advice or trying to teach you things. So, what were the top 3 lessons that your parents or mentor taught you that you feel are still relevant in today's digitally connected world?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one, now that I've become a father and it's kind of settling in that I'm expected to give some words of wisdom to my kids and really lead by example or be around them in manners. I think about what my mom and dad did for me. We honestly lived a very simple life, a small town in India. It was all about quality of life. In fact, I'll tell you this, you know, all across growing up, and I was very fortunate because I talked to a lot of my friends, this didn't happen. Lunchtime, my dad would be home, regardless of how much work he had. My mom, my siblings, myself, my grandmother, we all had lunch sitting across the table together. And it was little conversations. How was your day? What are the top couple of updates of from your day? Just making normal conversation and making sure we're engaged in each other's lives was just so important. It was the little things in life. Like we weren't making grand plans, but it was like, what did you do in school? Or dad, how's who did you meet? What did you do? Um, I think just making sure that that bond, like connection, and conversation in this digital age still exists. Because it's all too easy. Sometimes my wife and I are at a restaurant, and half an hour in, we're on our phones for a little bit, and then we like check ourselves. We say, no, no, like this is not the point of being here. And certainly, we want to make sure we're very present with our little ones. So I think that's one. I think the second one has always been value for money. While we had a comfortable life, we kind of recognized as kids that was good enough. Like you didn't need to grow money, and money wasn't growing on trees. And even simple things. I remember for my from my fifth birthday through my 10th birthday, at least, vivid memories. Every year, birthday we would go to a orphanage and spend time there. So it wasn't about the gifts I was receiving, but it was the gifts we were sharing with, the kind of the underprivileged people around us. So, so I think this kind of giving it being more important, like more important than getting on even occasions like your birthday. Well, I think important. I think the third thing that I learned from my dad that has really helped me in my professional life has been this notion of just being more of a servant leader. I know we kind of hear this often in the valley, but I really see kind of there are leaders that are there to tell you and be very assertive on what you need to do, and then there are leaders whose philosophy is I'm here to serve my employees, make them successful because if they're successful, I will be successful, our company and our greater mission will be successful. And I think that requires a lot of empathy. It requires a lot of ability to listen more than speak. Um, and really just be there to serve people around you and for them to feel comfortable coming up, talking to you, voicing their concerns, and expecting you will help find solutions. So if there's some of those values I can imbibe in our kids, I think that would be a big one.
Wow, that's beautiful upbringing. I must say you're very blessed. That's probably where your philosophy of people before profits came, right? Because I hear you talk about always putting people before what the end result is, and being very transparent with the team. So, but you're running a business at the same time, so there's a fine line. So, what are the financial tips that a dad should be teaching the children? Because you don't want to teach them to be takers, but at the same time giving back. The whole philosophy really has to integrate as a fine balance. So, what's the advice for that?
Yeah, look, you have more experience in this department. Your kids are older. I often talk to you, and I have a lot to learn from you as well. But Rupam, I think the challenge is, my wife and I are in a position of kind of privilege now, which we worked hard for. Right? It wasn't we weren't born with it, and we want to make sure our kids don't feel like it just comes, it comes easy. So I think to the point of where you started, just how I apply this in my professional life to then to my kids. I do believe, right, before a product, before customers come people, come employees, and if you're building something great, if you have the foundation of the right set of people and values, everything else will be great. Profit follows. If your employees aren't happy because they're underpaid, overworked, well, you're not going to break that great output. I think on the children's side, uh, it's understanding value of money. If there's one thing I can kind of really be successful in, that's the one thing I would want to focus on. Now, how do you do that? I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'll be experimenting, but it's small things. I mean, it's everything from when they understand the concept of money, this notion of pocket money and budgeting, prioritizing what's important for you, what is really necessary versus what's nice to have. Well, in our case, we're blessed that we have twins. We'll be able to invite the concept of sharing and giving early on. But I hope they can take that beyond just the two of themselves and kind of really share with the world, the greater community. And again, I'm sure our boys will be more blessed in many situations than other kids. So how are they going to get equality with their friends and share the toys that they have or other things that they're going to be living by. So I guess if we come back here in 5 years, maybe we should read this session and I'll tell you what worked, what didn't. But at the end of the day, I think we can invite the value of money to them early on. That would be a huge one, along with sharing not just themselves, but with the broader community.
Yeah, and I guess that's where conscious parenting is all about, where we're learning as we're going. We tailor it based on where we are, what they're doing, take a step back and look at where they are, and then guide the next steps. And we're all learning in this journey. And I loved when you said that your favorite course at USC was in ethical hacking. I just love that ethical hacking word. So if you could sit down with every new parent and offer life hacks, what would be on the top of your list?
Gosh, life hacks. I always joke with my wife. I mean, what is this multitasking? You have to know how to multitask when you have kids and a successful professional life. I think the other piece we talked about early on is compartmentalization. Like when you're off work, when you're outside of your home office or real office, you're off for a while. Like don't be thinking work while you're trying to be present with your kids, because then you're not really present. And I swear with them, even with them being kind of 11 months old, I noticed this pattern where if I'm sitting there with them on the phone, like our interactions are very different. And when we're off our devices, we're spending quality time with them and just the engaging factor. So I'd say those are probably good starting points, the compartmentalization piece, as well as just the other things we've talked about.
Yeah, I love that you said that. As a working mom, for me, myself, multitasking was a thing I used to take pride in. And this pandemic taught me, one thing at a time, take your time, enjoy the moment, because before you know it, it's time to, they'll be off. My daughter's going to be a senior this year and she's going to go away. So one thing at a time. But thank you so much, Varun, for being on our show and sharing your insights. And we will be back in 5 years. Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to that conversation. I would have learned a lot, and I'll be happy to share with others around. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Rupam, thank you for having a great conversation with Varun. We took so much away from that wonderful discussion. My favorite part was about him talking about his journey from the east part of the world coming to the west and how things changed for him. But one thing, even through his career, professional, personal journey, and all the changes he went through, the one thing that resonated with me the most and stuck was always how he said to find time to balance out your personal life with your professional, of him as being a new dad, regardless of everything going on around the world, find the 1 hour of quality time in the morning and in the evening, and then with your spouse and kids. Truly resonated on how one can achieve that work-life balance or harmony that we always talk about, right?
Absolutely. I think he had that advantage because he took that ethical hacking class at USC. So it's not fair to say that because it felt like I'm not speaking to a new dad. He's an old soul at heart, and it so truly came through on the camera because he had it down. I mean, he had the hacks in place. He had all the right ingredients in order, which is an absolute blessing for
Yep.
his kids. So I felt so at ease because he wasn't looking for, like, he had it down.
Yeah, it's just, someone so young to be able to have so much wisdom and experience. I'm glad he came on our segment today and, taught us all the pointers his parents had given him growing up, the little activities that they did with him, which truly made him the real businessman that he is today. It makes a difference in what our parents teach us when we're younger, especially the thought process around value for money and how to achieve that financial freedom at a very young age, to consider it a privilege and not a right, no matter how successful you are, and how he wants to inculcate those values with his newborns as they grow up in a successful world compared to what he had experienced. And so this concept of value of money and always being appreciative and grateful, it's something truly amazing for all of us to learn from and continue thinking about.
Yes, it was absolutely very heartwarming because it wasn't just about the privilege. I would even take it to a step further, where he takes it as a blessing and he wants to give back. I think that was a piece of the puzzle that really gave me that aha moment, because a lot of people would take it as a privilege and then do this for their immediate family, but to move around and say, I want to give back and be there for everyone, that is what really gave me that aha moment and said, wow, that's what a true dad is all about.
I know, and we want to thank him once again for being on our segment, and happy Father's Day to everyone.
Happy Father's Day.
And now we have a masterclass on branding by the CEO of Silver Brand Consulting, Carrie Weaver. Learn how to articulate your personal leadership values, strengths, and purpose in a heartfelt, non-jargon way that will motivate and inspire action from others aligned with your brand. Welcome, Carrie.
Having a recognizable personal leadership brand is a great way to influence people and step into greater personal power. It's my experience in being an executive coach after 15 years in corporate HR as an executive myself that all career professionals want the same thing. They want to make impact in an organization they care about, working with people that they like, ideally making good money, and doing all of that without losing their sanity and having some semblance of a healthy work-life balance. Well, if everybody wants that, it's because they don't have it to begin with. And why is that? Well, it's that people lack two types of power. They lack personal power in their ability to set a vision and have clarity for the life and career that they want to be leading, and or they don't have the boundaries set up to be able to say no when things don't align to that vision. It's also possible that you lack organizational power. Maybe your organization is huge and no one is listening to you, or maybe it's small and you just don't feel like you have the ability to influence people to the outcomes that would help you feel like you could have that greater work-life balance and the impact that you're really looking for. So it's really a lack of power that keeps us in the malaise of the day-to-day and really victim to the circumstance of our life when we're just going through the motions. And when we don't have power, it can lead to anxiety and stress. We can dread going to work. That lessens our productivity and achievement. All kinds of negative interactions and difficult relationships can spur out of that. And then at the end of the day, we're really talking about having lower emotional engagement in our life, more health issues, lower quality of life, and ultimately unhappiness. And this is very painful. And unfortunately, lots of career professionals are living, eating, and breathing day to day just like this, with a total and utter lack of personal or organizational power. I have some good news though, and it's all about power, influence, and leadership. You see, power is the ability of one person to influence another. And leadership, interestingly, is about the ability to motivate and inspire others into action. And using this definition of leadership, literally anyone can be a leader. In fact, we lead ourselves. So leadership is a process of influence. Therefore, if we want greater power, we can have greater influence. Now, social psychologists will tell us that influence falls into 4 different buckets, or the 4 C's of influence. And those who are influential have all 4 of these things. They are competent, they are confident, they are committed to the organization, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be influential, and they are well connected with other people that have power and influence. Now, a lot of people think influence is one skill, and that's not true. It's many. These 12 skills can make you incredibly influential. Today, we're talking about using personal branding as a way to influence others and gain greater personal and organizational power. Let's talk about the goal of a personal brand. It's how you want to be known, equaling how the world sees you. We need to distinguish between 2 really important facets of our psyche: our identity and our reputation. Our identity is the you that you know, right? That's what's going on inside here and inside here. Your reputation is the you that I know. It's how your actions and behaviors land on us. I can't read your mind. I don't know what's going on in your heart, but I am experiencing your behaviors, right? So that's the core difference between identity and reputation. And for some people, there's a gap. With personal branding, we want to make sure that the gap really shrinks to absolutely nothing, that who you are on the inside and what people are experiencing are in fact one and the same. So there's 2 essential questions that we really have to get to the root of before we can even do the work in developing a personal leadership brand. How are you known as a leader? Go out and ask people. Literally create like a 360 for yourself. Email 30 people, 10 people, family, friends, I don't care who it is, but ask for 3 to 5 attributes or strengths and areas of opportunity, however you want to frame it. Get the data, understand how is it that you're known as a leader, then look at it, right? Is it in line with how you want to be known? And if it's not, start to create what those elements are for you to really deeply understand for yourself through your own personal awareness how you want to be known. Once you have these 2 things, that's the foundation for us to start to build a personal leadership brand. There are 3 essential components, and this work comes from the famous and wonderful Simon Sinek. He wrote a book called Start With Why. If you don't know it, I recommend you pick it up. I looked at a bunch of different personal branding frameworks in my time as an executive coach and HR professional, and I just keep coming back to Sinek's work because it's the best. And he says that branding, or really how people come to make decisions, has to do with what he codified as the golden circle: what you do, how you do it uniquely well, and why you do what you do. And of course, he says start with the why. So instead of 1, 2, 3, we're going to go 3, 2, 1. But first, we need to understand what these elements are. And in the work that I've done with brand, this is where I have observed the executives that I work with over and over. Actually, what people are experiencing of them comes from these 3 elements. It's how you think, and how we think is really based off of our value systems and our beliefs, right? It's how we act. Again, that's the reputational piece, what people experience of us. Okay, so if how I think is the identity piece, how I act is reputation. And that's really my strengths, what people see me doing. If they see me communicating or presenting or coaching or convening or teaching, you name, there's all sorts of skills, right? You tell me what your skills are. Ultimately, you have to understand what your strengths are. Then there's this element of how we communicate, what gets us excited, what are our energetic drivers, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. How we think informs how we act and how we communicate, And it's really these two pieces, how we act and communicate, that then shows up to other people as our brand. So we're going to combine my theory here on this slide and Simon Sinek's framework, and we're going to start to put this together. So the first thing we need to get is a list of our core values. This is how we think. This is not an exhaustive list. Take a look at it. I want you to ultimately pull out 5. You can pause the recording, do a deep think exercise on this if you want. Take 10 minutes, 30 minutes if you need to, and come up with the 5 core values that really shape how you think and make decisions. The next thing I need you to do is think about your strengths. And I need you to think about your strengths in 2 different lenses. What it is you do. I'm a master trainer. I'm a teacher. I teach leadership skills to emerging executive women, but there's lots of leadership trainers. How do I do that uniquely well? I'm extremely enthusiastic about what I do, and it's my enthusiasm and actually my practical frameworks and tools that really resonate with people. So what you do and how you do it uniquely well are the 2 things that I want you to name. And you can come up with lots of different things here. Have 5 or 10 things for what you do. And for each of those 5 or 10 things, have 5 or 10 things that match how you do it uniquely well. All right, so definitely pause the recording here and take stock or inventory of your strengths. Now, we want to focus on what it is that really energizes us. What are we passionate about? We want to get to that why component in Simon Sinek's framework. Why do we do what we do? That's what people follow. People follow leaders that believe in something. We're motivated and inspired by that. And everybody wants to be led by an inspirational leader. And a lot of people come to me, even my clients, and say, Carrie, I don't know what I'm passionate about. Well, make a list. Answer these 5 questions. What are you passionate about? It could be nothing to do with what you're currently doing. I'm an animal advocate and a vegan. That has nothing to do with being a leadership trainer. But start to think about all of the different things that you're passionate about. Make a list. What are your hobbies and interests? I love interior design. I love plants. Now you're starting to shape what it is that people compliment you about. Is it that you've always dressed cool? Or is it that you're a personal stylist and those 2 things work really well together? Or is it that people compliment me on my energetic and enthusiastic teaching, right? Which is often what I get complimented for. Why do people seek your help? Get a list of what those things are. And finally, answer this number 5 question. Fill in the blank with as many words as you want. The world would be better if fill in the blank. Okay? Let's start to put all of these components together, and we'll use mine as an example. First, as a reminder, I want you to speak to your beliefs, why you do what you do, how you do that thing uniquely well, and then ultimately, what is it that you do? This will form a brand statement, and then ultimately you're just going to start saying this to people all the time. And the more that you do it, the more that they understand what you stand for, the more that your reputation and identity are aligned, the more you have a personal brand. My brand statement, or my why, is this. I believe our society can be stronger and more prosperous when all people truly have access to good paying jobs. I believe that shift will occur when 60% of the Fortune 500 are led by women. How and what? I enthusiastically teach a science-backed framework of 12 core leadership skills to emerging executive women so they can influence their own way into the C-suite. I'm the CEO of Silver Branch Consulting, a boutique leadership development firm focused on elevating women into positions of power and redesigning corporate America. So I could say that to you, and most of the time when I do that, people are really impressed and they think, wow, Carrie really has a clear message and a clear vision for what she's doing. But the idea for you is to start taking little pieces of any of these sentences and sprinkling them into your day-to-day conversations. Think about the core theme of what's really going on here in my why. It's really one of equity, right? I grew up as one of 3 siblings, identical twin brothers, and then I came 11 months later. So to avoid screaming and tears in the household, my mom had to make sure everything was exactly fair in 3 different ways from Sunday, and even cut bananas in 3 equal pieces to share. And I unfortunately learned the harsh truth that life isn't always fair, but I am really driven to the call of fairness and equity in all things, because the world that we live in is so far from fair. And if it were more equitable, we would have a more prosperous, strong society where all the boats are rising together, right? I really believe that's core to my being, and it has to do with how I grew up, right? So I want your whys to really take hold of something emotional and important to you. And when we share our stories and we share our whys, just like I shared mine with you, almost the why behind the why, that's what motivates people. That's what gets people emotionally connected to us as leaders. That's what's going to make us more influential. That's what's going to make us more powerful. So start to write your brand statements out and share them piece by piece or all at once if you want. All right. The goal here is to tell people who you are and what you believe in all the time. My name is Carrie Weaver. Again, I am the CEO of Silver Branch Consulting, a boutique leadership development company that teaches emerging executive women the 12 science-backed skills needed to influence their way into the C-suite. If you liked this particular course, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find me at Carrie A. Weaver, and you can also go to my website, Silver Branch Consulting, to learn more. I hope you enjoyed the content. Be well.
Thank you for joining us today and elevating yourself. Charity should begin at home, but should not stay there. At 180 Elevate, it is our honor to support local and global philanthropies which make an impact on the lives of our beautiful children and the world in of itself.
What would this world look like if we all felt cared for? Let's co-create that new paradigm. If you would like to consider joining our philanthropic mission, please consider donating at 180elevate.com. And next is just a glimpse into one of the many philanthropies our organization supports.
This video celebrates all the learners of our Second Chance program, especially those from Jaltar in Odisha, for their strong will and never give up attitude. Every day, our learners walk 2 kilometers to a hill close to their village for better network connectivity. This narrow, steep climb takes them to the top of the hill and closer to their dreams. They then split into different groups to maintain physical distance as per the COVID-19 protocols. After finding a suitable spot and stable connectivity, the group leaders then connect to the Zoom links shared by the facilitator. They participate actively in the discussion with their facilitator and share their queries. Their efforts to learn inspire their facilitators.